Hey folks, today I have the pleasure to host Andrea Picasso for the first time in the channel. Hi Andrea.
Hi, Youssef. How are you doing?
Awesome. Can you tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, I'll be super short. First of all, nice to meet you all on the channel. I'm Andrea Picasso and I'm a solution architect for Databricks based in Italy, specifically in Milan. Handle mostly uh, government companies. And now I'm here, and today I'm here to talk to you about AIBI, which is a strong focus I'm having on Databricks. So specifically AIBI focus.
And you're right, and today's topic is a very interesting and important one, caching mechanism in the AI BI dashboards. And you all know that dashboards are at the heart of the BI today. But nothing, really nothing destroys trust in analytics faster than a slow, laggy dashboard.
Yeah, you're right. What we see on the customer is that people are always focusing and thinking on I want to build the fanciest dashboard possible. I want to have the beautiful visual. But really little people think about what about optimizing for performances? What about focusing on caching? While caching is really the key part for you. If you want to have people happy and using your dashboard, you want them to be fast, not only fancy and cool to see.
That makes sense. Can you break down the core pieces that matter most, like datasets, filters, parameters, and how each of them impacts the caching?
Yeah, there are three key elements that you need to consider when you build a dashboard. Let me share my screen and show you something. Okay, so first of all, first element you need to consider are datasets. What are datasets? Datasets are built from queries, are starting from the data you have on Unity Catalog, or you can also add data coming from external sources using the Chaos Federation. Datasets are the basics, the place from where all your visualization and all your dashboards will use and will start using data. So it's really important to understand and to use properly data sets. Other two important elements that you need to consider when you build a dashboard is how to filter the data that you are visualizing. First is using filters. Filters, they work directly on the browser cache, so they are really effective and they give you results in instant. While on the other side, you have parameters. And when you use parameters, you have a parameter directly into the query. So every time you run or change one specific parameter, the query is sent back again to the backend. So you can get either a result from the backend query cache, or otherwise you execute the query. So those are a little bit more slow. We will see later what this means. But it's really important to consider those three elements. So stressing again, dataset, the place from where your data starts and comes, and then filters against parameters.
So, just to summarize, filters are local and very fast, while parameters will go and look at the backend to run the query back again. And for datasets, if you can minimize, like avoid the famous, I don't know, select star, select the right columns, and maybe add filters on the top of your data tables, that's still gonna be good. That's
That's
right.
correct. That's exactly the approach you need to consider. So parameters are not local while go directly to the backend, while filters are local.
And can you dig a little bit deeper on how does this mechanism of caching work in AIBI?
Yeah, let me show you a chart to do that. Okay, in this image, you can see how the caching works inside the API. You need to consider that there are two levels of cache. The first one is in the browser, so the browser cache. And the browser cache can keep up to 100,000 of rows. That's really important to consider this because every time you run you change something in the dashboard and everything is executed inside the browser cache, you get an instant response. While every time you go back to the workspace, so to the backend, the query either is taken from the query cache or otherwise executed on the warehouse. And in that case, the time you wait for the query could be a little bit longer. We are talking about hundreds of milliseconds or a few seconds in case of complex queries. So it's really important to consider every time possible to keep your visualization running in the browser cache because that's the place where you will get instant answers.
Just to be sure, whenever I use a parameter, does it each time hit the query again, or it will bring back the caching, the results from the caching mechanism?
Okay, so without going too much into details into the cache that you have in the workspace, because that one also is divided into different layers, but let's consider it as only one layer. Every time you tune and you change one parameter, what's happening is that the query goes into the backend check if the same user has executed the same query in the past 24 hours, it will get the result directly from query cache, and this is super fast. While if the same user hasn't executed the same query in the last 24 hours, in that case, it will go directly to the warehouse and will be executed. One important element to consider here is also the way you manage configuration of the security of a specific dashboard, because you can have credentials which are embedded or credential per users. So if you have embedded credential, every user running on the dashboard will use the same credential, which is really useful for caching because every query executed from the different users will go directly in the same cache, and this is super useful. On the other side, if you need to have separation of duties or you need to have specific row filters, in that case, you need to leave the user's permission. So if you use user permission, you are going to be super precise in the way you split the visibility on rows and columns, but at the same time, you will lose some flexibility on the cache.
That makes sense. So basically, you're saying that we need to, like when you share dashboard, whenever we embed credentials, we will be sharing the cache, which means we will benefit from this performance improvement. In addition, prefer filters over parameters. We need to make sure that the data is lower than 100,000 rows. That's
Rows.
right.
Yes, correct. And consider that one other element I want to show you, because till now we've been just discussing, I want to show you also the difference in practice. Let me share the screen
Yeah, that's
again.
right.
Let me share the difference in practice. Okay, so what we have here, we have a dashboard with different visual. All those visual are based on the same dataset. So again, coming back to the first element, the dataset is the data behind those visualization. And the department in this case is a filter. So every time I change this, we will see that the answer is instant. As you can see, the visualization changes without any query being executed in the backend. Super quick. On the other side, if you want to understand when a specific execution is executed into the browser cache or into the backend, you can easily see from here. If, for example, here I have a parameter and I change it, you can see that there are some spinning wheels super quick in this case. I can't even see them because the query is executed lightning fast, but you see some spinning wheels here. You can see it again. While if you go directly in browser cache, for example, with filters, you see that there are no spinning wheels and the result is instant, even faster than the one before.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so I do understand from what you're saying that the caching mechanism is not only a detail. This is really the core of the performance of the AI BI dashboard. In addition to the tweakings you can do by, for example, bringing, I don't know, doing filters to reduce the number of data you're joining, or like getting rid of all the columns that you may not want. And it's not about just building fancy graphs that you manage, but also build something performant and fast and cost efficient.
Yeah, that's correct. If you want to summarize my key findings and my three suggestions for the people using ABI dashboards are: first, try always to keep dataset below the threshold that we described, so 100 megabyte or 100,000 rows per dataset, really important. Try as long as you can to embed credential in the dashboard. In this way, the caching will be shared among the users. That's really, really important. Again, last element, but not least for importance, try to use filter as much as possible to avoid going back to the backend, but work directly into the browser cache. And also, when you need to use parameter, they are not a nightmare. You can use them, but use them strategically to try to reduce the size of your dataset to keep everything in cache. Really important.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrea. And I think we're going to see you very soon for a second video on the performance optimization on the top of AI BI dashboard.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.